question will become really quickly whether he's capable of driving the Ferrari that he's got underneath him.
A masterclass from John Longmire and his young Swans to beat the 8th placed Giants and put their finals chances in jeopardy.
Clearly we got found out today, so we need to cop our right whack. One team turned up and the other didn't.
Yes, they're missing a few good players. Every team is. And every team's resting good players. That's part of the management.
They had no system.
No.
They're done this year. They're done.
I think Hutchie started it. It's the Ferrari and you can't drive the Ferrari. It's absolute bullshit. And it really annoys me because that side's won finals in the last 4 years, played in a grand final last year. Yeah, they haven't won a grand final, but how hard are they to win?
Well, the Giants are a big story after their performance against the Swans. Leon Cameron, the scrutiny comes again. Caro, his contract, though, has already been promised by the Giants.
It's been promised, but it hasn't been signed off and it hasn't been put through, and it will change because of the changes to footy department spend. There will be clauses, and if they were to part company with Leon Cameron before the end of 2022, it doesn't mean he would be completely paid out. But I do think that there is an agreement between the two parties.
They've given themselves an out in the contract. Is that what you're saying?
No. I'm just saying there's clauses in the contract like there are in all contracts, but the two bodies, the two entities are united in going forward. It's just interesting that it hasn't actually been announced yet. I'm interested in what the footy director Jimmy Bartell had to say, and he's had a bit to say over the journey about Leon Cameron. Can we have a listen to that? This was yesterday on 3AW.
You get what you deserve in footy, and I think the Giants are getting what they deserve in footy. They're not defending well as a unit, and they're not using the ball well, but it doesn't mean the season's over. They are where they are on the ladder because they're playing that way, and they shouldn't be there on the ladder with the ability and what they've shown in the last 18 months.
Strong words again. Now, there's a level of complacency amongst that playing group on the weekend, taking on a team who weren't at their home ground, who are obviously not firing at the moment.
Crossbridge rivals.
But should we be looking at the coaches? Craig clearly always does.
Well, I think his record is prelim, elimination and grand final. So, and with the talent they've got, or perceived talent, we thought that's good. But on the back of a grand final, you expect them to go again, that hunger, the disappointment. But it hasn't panned out that way. And Jimmy Bartell is very knowledgeable.
Can I ask you about this? What about coaching from the bench, which he likes to do a lot?
Not my preference. Simpson doesn't do it. Chris Scott doesn't do it. I think Fagan's the only one that does it. But
I'm naive on this, but don't you sit on the bench in order to have active conversations with players?
Well, I think that's what coaches of young teams do. I think Stuart Dew's doing it really well. Only Leon could speak to that. But typically he's up in the box. There's no doubt you get a better view overall. And I actually don't like being in the box and then going down, unless it's the last 2 or 3 minutes, because I think the message it sends is you're not really trusting what's going on.
There was a
below.
disappointment. They came back from the COVID break sort of maybe a little bit out of shape and a little bit complacent, and then we saw the complacency again on the weekend. Is that the coach's fault or responsibility?
No, that's the players and the leaders' fault. I mean, you can encourage, you can try and motivate, but in the end, you've got to do the work. You've got to make the decision and own it. And the only thing that they did do last year, they had a leadership consultant that worked really well with them, Sean Richardson, and that leadership group was strong interstate. They've changed, I think Cooper Cronk come in. I'm not sure they did that. And I got invested. Sean Richardson, I've had a long association with, really respect him, but he was changed on the back of the leadership group standing up in interstate finals. It didn't make sense to me. And sometimes it comes to get you down the track.
Kane, what's your view?
Speaking of leadership, I was interested in this little clip from Stephen Coniglio at half-time of that game against Sydney.
Steve, what did you make of that half?
Yeah, hopeless really. Got to get in there and find an answer. We are been in this position twice in 2 weeks and we've got to find something now.
I think he's got potential to be a very good captain, but this is 15 seconds after those comments were made. That is unacceptable for a captain. If you're going to put it on the rest of your group, you've got to nail the first tackle that you go and make a statement as captain of that footy club. So words are great and we love the honesty, we love how fresh it is and the host broadcaster loves it, but if I'm his teammate, I'm going to say, well, you call us hopeless, and that's the effort that you give straight after half-time. He's got to be better than that.
Well, I think you've misinterpreted a little bit. I don't think he distanced himself from the group. He said we were hopeless. I think that puts him in there. But that effort after half-time, you want bodies flying, you want a collision.
Is their window shutting?
I believe they're not as talented as they were in 16, 17, 18. I'd need 5 minutes to talk about the talent that's gone out the door. Devon Smith, Treloar, the list goes on. I don't think they're as talented as what they were. They're vulnerable in defence, and they're not getting it done around the midfield.
And they're bursting at the seams salary cap-wise, aren't they?
Let me ask you the unpopular question. Is that a type of list that would entice you back into coaching if that job became available?
To be honest, I'm not interested in coaching at the minute, no.
At the minute?
What are you laughing at, Kane?
Well, you aren't as good as your current moment or your next moment. Yeah. I think Leon, on performance, prelim, limit, grand final. But to me, I agree with their footy director. I can't see their signature. It's not as defined as West Coast,
what should be
Geelong, at Brisbane. Well, I think that's been put on the table. Jimmy Bartel has said what the rest of the football world's thinking, and I'm sure Leon's thinking.
Fascinating. Jeremy Cameron's going to be fascinating. Now, Caro, he's out of contract. Geelong have been wooing him for the best part of a year. I'm guessing that's why Tom Hawkins isn't clear on what he would earn. And he's been paid $1 million plus for this time, and he's not what he was. Now, he's still a very influential player, but he's not 1 million influential at the moment. Or is he, Ross?
No, well, they're startling figures and drops. But I think they've been low entries, not great delivery. They've been efficient in there, but I don't see him playing with the intent.
He kicked 60 goals when they were 18th in the comp.
Yeah, and an expansion team. Like the numbers are what he's done in his career to this point. He's worth $1 million a year, but that's mediocre, and he'd be disappointed to see that.
So how does that work, Kane? Like Tom Hawkins is playing the football of his life right now. I'm only guessing that they're trying to price the two of them, Geelong, it may be half keeping some room available in case they can get Cameron. Where should the money go at Geelong if Cameron is potentially in play?
Well, I think Geelong have always been strong on rewarding loyalty. I mean, that's why there was talk that Dangerfield didn't get paid more than Selwood when he came in, and you reward that. So Tom Hawkins has to be rewarded for his form and his loyalty, albeit he's turning 31, 32. So there's a discount that comes with that. If you could get Jeremy Cameron into that Geelong mix, that is perfect, because Cameron kicks 6 just like Hawkins did on Friday night if he gets the delivery. And as Ross alluded to, the Giants had 53 entries, but it was pretty ugly and it was pretty messy. Jeremy Cameron's good enough. Does he deserve a change of attitude? Does his body language suggest that he would want one? You might be able to read into that, and it does appear a good fit at the Cats.
Speaking of the Cats, we'll talk about their offence, which has been the big change in a sec, but the defence has been consistent through this era. Matthew Scarlett offered interesting insight into it on the weekend.
I like having big, strong guys there. I don't like getting marked on inside defensive 50. The pleasure of coaching these guys, they're all superb athletes. They can run, they're quick, and they're all really big, which I tend to like in a defender.
And the defensive numbers stack up, Ross. Look at this. They continue to be miserly.
They're all over defence, though. What they did to St Kilda Football Club the week before, they could have moved the ball, and then the following week, all they did was slaughter Essendon out of back 50. So it's all over ground defence, but I love the tall... The defence that just chops and changes. They take tall, they take smalls. They don't get caught out. There's no shuffling the defence. And there's no one-on-ones. They just get back and support. And the work rate's enormous.
Have they leapfrogged into premiership favouritism?
Well, I was on them a while ago.
Yep, you were.
To be fair, like the eye doctor.
Yeah, you tipped last week
clearly,
what would happen
they're
on
number
the
one
weekend.
attack and number one defence at round 12. You don't fluke 12 games of high performance, but from here anything can happen. So he's managing them really well, Chris.
Very, very early for a first I told you so in your first Monday night, by the way.
Well, I thought
Kane, is Gary Albert straight into the team?
Well, you want to say yes, don't you, because of the story and the history. It would depend on how fit he is. So I wouldn't think he's fit enough to walk straight back in from the way that we've seen him come back, and I'm not sure how his training has been. So is he susceptible to soft tissue injuries? I'd be wanting to get him really up and running. 2 or 3 weeks of fast, intense training before I put him back into that side. There's no need to rush him straight back in.
Well, he's the GOAT, isn't he? The last game against Brisbane that I saw, he walked straight in and they managed their squad.
It's interesting that normally we're debating the games at Geelong and their reliance on that venue versus the games at the MCG and how they underperform. They won't say either ground again for the rest of the year. So it's a fascinating final series ahead for the Cats, and Chris Scott won't have too much to say, Caro, about that in the coming weeks.